We back, baby. Let's go. We back. Let's go. Boiler up. Let's go. All right, so I'm sure that most of you have probably heard by now that Big Ten football is back. The news is spreading like wildfire. The presidents of the Big Ten Conference got together from each school and they voted unanimously to resume football operations on October 24th. Now, obviously, this is going to be huge for a lot of players who had a lot riding on this season, whether they were seniors who were looking to get in that last hurrah, or whether they were guys who were potential NFL draft picks who wanted to get as much on film as possible for NFL scouts to be able to look at. This is a big, big deal for a lot of students out there, and I'm happy for them from the bottom of my heart, because as an athlete myself, as someone who played in the Big Ten, more specifically at Purdue University, there would have been nothing more crushing, nothing more just purely defeating than to lose my last year as a Boilermaker, because in my last year, it was the only year I truly had to actually make an impression for the NFL. I was kicked out of Purdue in the fall semester of my junior year, so I actually did not play football my junior year. I only played football at Purdue my sophomore and my senior year. Now, could I imagine my senior year being completely postponed or delayed with aspirations of going from a preseason all Big Ten candidate to being an NFL prospect and not being able to have that final season to put my best film on camera for these scouts? No, I would be crushed. Couldn't even imagine that type of situation happening. Now, there are a couple of things that are looking to be done by the Big Ten in order to make this season one that can be played through in completion. These guys are going to play 8 straight games with no break between that 8th game and the Big Ten championship. So there is going to be a high paced season that the Big Ten is going to try and get through. And, they're going to, if there are any delays, then, it is what it is, I guess, right? Now, initially, if you don't remember this, the Big Ten actually voted 11-3 to postpone the season about a month ago. And of course, there was huge backlash about this from people who felt like this was a situation where players were actually safer being in their football program environment, where they are kind of isolated from the rest of the university and are able to, keep them in the safest position possible in regards to, contracting the virus and dealing with the pandemic in general. And I actually was on board with that kind of thinking. But, as a player, I also know how that can feel to be completely isolated in an environment like it's training camp the entire season. That's hard. That's a really hard thing for any school to pull off, especially a school with young players. Because I remember what I used to do during training camp once I started getting stir crazy from being in that same locker room environment every day for 4 weeks. I snuck out. Yeah. And I know a lot of players do. So that's something that guys are going to have to be cognizant of, is not to take any chances with their health when they get to that wall where they can't really keep themselves focused because of their constant monotony of the environment that they're in. Now, again, one of the big issues that I brought up in a prior video in regards to this was, how do programs that aren't as resource rich, like Ohio State, like Michigan, like Wisconsin, how do programs that don't have those schools' kinds of money, how are they going to be able to handle testing every day, every practice, every time they play a game, and not feel the financial burden that could place on them? And then on top of that, well, what happens when one of their best players tests positive? What the Big Ten is proposing right now is that if a player tests positive, they have to sit out for 21 days before they're eligible to come back. So if one person tests positive and it's your star quarterback, he's done for essentially half of the season. And by the time he comes back, who knows where that team's position may stand in regards to the Big Ten championship, and even bigger in the race for the playoffs for the national championship. could be a big problem if, you know, things don't work the way they're expected to. Now, another thing that's also a pretty big caveat for the Big Ten is they are basing a lot of the ability to move forward on positivity rates. So if a team's positivity rate actually exceeds 5%, then that team is on pause. What does it mean when the team's on pause? It means they can't practice and they can't play in any games for 7 days. Now, that could be a huge handicap for any team. If they have a situation where they have a small outbreak. We saw it happen in the MLB. The Florida Marlins had an outbreak, and you know, you had multiple players who tested positive for the virus. If that happens on a college football team, you could potentially have 100+ players who test positive, because these guys are going to be in close quarters the entire time. So these are things that you really have to keep in mind when you're talking about the Big Ten starting things back up and getting back to football. They have to keep this thing tight. They have to have a tight ship, because if they slip up and have an outbreak on any team, it's going to shut down that team and potentially shut down the entire conference once again. But overall, I'm excited. I'm happy. I got my letter jacket on. I'm ready to get back to it with Purdue football. Let's boil her up and hammer down. And leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. Is it going to be something that holds true for the whole season for the Big Ten? Are they going to be able to pull this off? Let me know what you guys think about that. And hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the Observant Lineman, Uche Nwaneri. Appreciate you guys for checking out this video. I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.